Hey everybody, so I'm on a different trail now, and it's been a while, but the colors of the leaves are just beautiful and glorious. Just gorgeous today. The sound of the wind, the sound of the Holy Spirit is so present right here. I just feel like I'm in my own little paradise. Seriously. So awesome. You know, walking in the woods is such a great way to clear your mind, reset your strategy, get right with God. It's a great way to connect into nature and her brilliance. Like, look at all these leaves falling. It's just so gorgeous. I'm in a shower of leaves falling right now. I don't know if you could see it, but it's beautiful. There's something about the quietness, the solitude. It's like the leaves create this cushion, you know. Like some of it's like the crunch, but other of it is like it's like a soft, you know, cushion underneath of your feet, like because the ground is softer with the leaves on top. And it is really great when trails are marked with the color that you're on and it's clear to see. Just makes it easier to remember your way back. So I had this weird dream last night. I haven't dreamed in a while, or remembered my dreams in a while. And to me that's a good indication that my body is functioning in a higher capacity again, because I'm remembering my dreams. And so for anybody out there that is not dreaming and wants to dream again, and you know, I'm just here to say that it can come back, but I think it has a lot to do with detoxing the body, eating clean, and having proper exercise and rest. I mean, I think those are all important in order to get to that point where your body's reset and realigned. Yeah. Check out this tree. It's just amazing when you think of the structure of things in life. The strength that this tree once had, and then it has a break. And then, you know, it's there. It's leaning on another tree in order to stay as it is, but it does have its components of dead wood, right? And we can all lean on somebody else, you know, every once in a while, but the other person that's holding all that weight of dead weight, you know, at some point it's gotta fall, it's gotta crash. And you know, when I think about you know, where I am and where I'm going, and at what point do I want to see something shift or have a major change in my life? It also means that I need to be clear about what it is that I want in the next portion or the next season. And I think if there's something that I've really learned, it's something that sometimes we have to pull away from something that we love, that we're not understanding that it's not healthy for us. And so therefore we have to pull away from something even though we think that it's good for us. And then when we pull away from it because we're being obedient to the Father and we're hearing that He's saying, hey, my daughter, don't do this anymore. And so we listen, and in this new season, we learn new things, and we're more focused on acquiring wisdom and understanding that the Father will be pleased about. And the irony is that after we put the focus on what the Father wants, then He brings back around the reasons why He wanted us to stop whatever we were doing that was part of our daily routines, and the reasons why He wanted us to stop. And when I think to my own life, I think back to the time when, all I wanted was I think I took for granted my health because I just had it, and it was easy for me. And growing up, doing all the physical fitness activities that I did with, walking, riding bikes, dance, yoga, stretching, etc., fishing, climbing, I was constantly active. And then when I wasn't active and I was in the season of wisdom and understanding, and I let my body go, some of it was that not that I really wanted to, but it was out of the injuries that I had sustained, and what was required was rest. And when you're so used to being active, like sitting still seems like, a death sentence is what it feels like when you're an active person. But then you get used to being still, and you get used to being a couch potato, and you get used to not moving, and the comfort of, I'm going to say, just being and not moving. And then one day it hits you and you're like, what am I doing? I'm not moving enough. Like, what happened to this body? I used to have a body that I really enjoyed. What is going on here? What are these rolls of fat? And then it's like the light bulb goes off and you want to quickly run to the other extreme. But because you're overweight, possibly even obese, you don't realize how far you've gone because you've gotten so comfortable with being comfortable. And then you look at the people in your life, and many of the people in your life have become comfortable with being comfortable, and they too are overweight or obese and not active. And then, at some point you have to make a choice. And when you get to that letter of Tet, in the Hebrew alphabet, it's a choice of life or death. And then you go back, at least for me, because I was so active, and I go back to going, wow, I was this really amazing active person, and now I'm this couch potato, and how do I get back? I've lost so much time, I've lost so much momentum, and as you start to walk again, you start to hike again, you start to do more stretching, you start to do some Pilates videos, you start to get on the vibration plate. Every time you do any of those little things, it's like your body is happy that you've chosen to do it, but at the same time, the body's going, man, you really put me through the loop today. I need a hot bath with Epsom salts, I need a massage. And so then the body reacts to you, quote, overdoing it because of such a period of not having any movement. So then I asked myself, why? I asked God, why did I have to lose all that time and momentum? And why couldn't I have just, quote, stayed in this yoga realm? Is it really that bad? Are there these spiritual components that you talk of? I mean, is it really that bad? And, it's I know that it is, but it's we want to bargain with God and be like, why did you do this to me? And how come it took this long? And why couldn't we have gotten back to my health sooner? And why did you have to make me wait this long? And a whole portion of my time is gone. And, and then the doubt and the fear crops up, who's going to want me at this age? I'm in menopausal age. I'm not of childbearing. I don't have that to offer to someone. And then, God reminds me that, He's God. And just because the medical community says you're in menopause and it's not going to happen for you, God is God. And, if I remember correctly, Sarah and Abraham were in their 80s and 90s when they had their first child, who ended up being Isaac, who ends up being, our ancestor who brought us forth in the whole lineage so that Yeshua, Jesus, could come through that line. And I'm still going, well, I'm old. I don't know. And this is where, we need to keep deferring to God. God is sovereign. He knows what He's doing. He doesn't need my help in the sense of me telling Him what to do. He needs my help to fulfill what He's told me to do and for me to carry it out. I just need to be obedient and listen when He says, go do this. Even though in the moment it doesn't make any sense. And, when I think to, it's just a really beautiful leaf. When I think to all the different things that God has showed me, it's never always clear, you know what I mean? There's always this level of trust of okay, God, you're asking me to do this. I really don't understand why. Right now, there's certain leaves that I'm picking up, and I have no idea why, but I'm just picking them up and being obedient, and that's what I mean about it's God's design, not, I'm just the voice that's hearing the call and being obedient, even though I don't understand every single step of the way. I'm just doing what I'm called to do one day at a time. I'm not anybody special. I'm an average person. and I'm just listening and I'm paying attention. That's it. That's the only real difference between me and you, is possibly just that in this moment I'm listening, and maybe you're listening to me going, wow, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could be bold to take a walk in the woods, or I wish I could turn my life around. I wish I could get my health back. Well, you can. It doesn't need to be, wishing. It can actually come true, and it requires your action. It requires you putting one foot in front of the other and starting to walk it out with the Lord. And you need that Holy Spirit guiding you so that you are hearing his voice and doing what he's asking you to do. And like I said, there are times when it doesn't make sense. Logically, it doesn't make sense. And yet, I have a choice. Am I going to choose life or death in this moment? If I'm choosing life, that means I'm being obedient. If I don't choose life, that means I'm choosing death. That's kind of how this works. If I'm choosing Jesus and Yeshua, I'm choosing life. If I keep looking to the Bible and his word and going, is that something that Jesus would do? Not really. Well, then I shouldn't be doing it. Sometimes it's that simple. We make it complicated. But like I was reading in Proverbs 31, the Proverbs 31 woman, the first warning is about the mother to his son, the king, saying, hey, don't put drunkenness and alcohol and drinking as part of your reality. Because if you do, you're going to lose. You're going to lose your righteousness. You're not going to judge properly, and you're going to lose your kingdom. Well, let's look around the world right now. Whether you call it alcoholism or addiction, what do you see? I see a lot of people that are drunks. I see a lot of people that are addicts. The number of videos that you look at on Facebook in terms of different cities that are overpopulated with people that are doing the heroin hang is crazy. I've never seen so many videos that are on the feed talking about all of the addicts and alcoholics that are on the streets in broad daylight, hardly wearing any clothes at all, just totally clueless. They're just lost. And there are times when if I see somebody at an intersection and they're begging for money, and I can look at them and I know that they're a drug addict, and I know if I give them cash, they're going to go out and get another one, because that's what they do. But in that moment, I might give them a bottle of water or some peanut butter crackers or whatever I have in the van, and I'll ask them if they want to pray. And if I have a Bible, I'll give them a Bible. Now, I plant those seeds hoping that that person will come to an understanding and have that desire to choose life and not death. But I don't know that person's fate. I don't know whether or not, that bottle of water and those peanut butter crackers, maybe they traded that for drugs. I have no idea. I don't know how drug addicts work. I know what I've seen. I know I don't want to be a part of that whole scene. And yet, you pray for the lost, that they find the way that includes Jesus, but we can't force it on people. And when they're not ready, they're not ready. And that's part of the sadness that I walk with. I walk with sadness and sorrow because many people are lost. And I want them to get it. I want them to understand the timing. I want them to understand that time's running out and that biblical prophecies are lining up and that the window is a short window and then that door is going to be closed. And if you choose Jesus, if you choose Yeshua as your Lord and Savior, you're going to be in one camp. And if you don't, you're going to be in another camp. And you're really not going to want that camp because it leads to Sheol, to hell. And you're really not going to like hell. You say that you will right now. You say it because you like your Halloween costumes and your crystals and your dream catchers and, you know, your whatever, fishnet stockings and goth wear, you know. And believe me, I have been there. I have been in those places before. I have been in those places of darkness, persuaded and manipulated by other people that were way more into it than I was into it. But by association, by friendship, by spending time with people that were really into these things, they manipulate you. And if you're not smart, you could look back and lose time and be like, how the hell did I go from wearing, you know, jeans and a t-shirt to wearing black eyeliner and having my hair dyed a black purple? Like, how did I get there? I got there because of the manipulation of a narcissist. The devil comes to lie, kill, steal, and destroy. And he is doing everything in his power to pull you away from your God-given purpose of truly understanding who you are and who Jesus, the Lord, is. And when you find out who Yeshua is, you know, and you really get it, you want to get to know things in a more positive way, you know, like you want to marinate in it. You want to marinate in the word. You want to find out who God, your Father, is. Not the devil, who's been pretending to be your father, who's a liar the whole time from the Garden of Eden all the way until now. No, it's like you want to get to the place where all you want to do is shout out about how great God is because he rescued you and he pulled you out of the pit. And when you get to that point, it's hard to not want to talk about it because every day that you wake up, you realize the thousands of times, the millions of times that you have been rescued because God kept giving you another chance, another chance, another chance. And then when you see the light and you really see it, it's like you just want to help other people by shining your light onto them and saying, hey dude, I've been there. I see what you're struggling with right now. I'm sorry to hear that this is going on for you. May I make a suggestion? It helped me when I was in a similar situation. And the point is, sometimes people want to listen. And sometimes they don't. And then that's why I say there's a deep sadness that I carry. The deep sadness is knowing that many souls are not going to make it. Which brings us back to, as in the days of Noah, so will be the last days. There were 8 souls saved on Noah's Ark. 8. Let that number sink in. 8 souls. When Abraham asked God to save the people in Sodom and Gomorrah, he asked, would you save 50 souls, 40, 30, 20, 10? And God said, yes, if there are 10, I will save 10 souls. Were there 10 souls? No, there weren't. Sodom and Gomorrah and that whole area was ruined because there were not 10 souls. Lot and his wife and his children. I believe that was 4 people. So half of 8 from the days of Noah, half of 8 from the days of Noah were saved with Sodom and Gomorrah. 4 people were saved. But even though they were saved, then Lot's wife turned back. She turned back. And in her turning back, she turned into a pillar of salt. And so who were saved? 3 people were saved. Not 4. So what I'm getting at is, as in the days of Noah, 8 souls were saved. And on one hand, I have no idea if I'm reading into this correctly or not. I don't know. But my intuition has been sitting on this and thinking about this. And here's what I'm thinking. If Noah was so concentrating all of his time on building the ark, he was physically building this massive boat, okay? And when the time was right, God gathered the animals, and the animals went onto the ship, onto the boat, the ark. And Abraham and his family went onto the boat. And that was 8 souls. But again, I have to wonder, all the time that Abraham was building the ark, and I believe it was 100 years. 100 years he's building this ark. He's seen as the laughing stock of the neighborhood. But then I think, did Noah really reach out and evangelize and try to explain who God was? I don't know the answer to that question. Is that why there were only 8 souls? Because Abraham and his family were not evangelizing? Well, they saved themselves, but then after they saved themselves, what happened? When the ark finally landed, the land was dry, they went out, they start gardening, and what happens? He gets drunk. And I have to ask myself the question, why does someone get drunk? Okay? And because my dad was an alcoholic, because my fiance was an addict, I know that both of those men, my father and my fiance, they dealt with grief. They dealt with the grief of losing their own parents, not having the advisement and counsel that they used to have when people were gone. And again, I had both of my parents at that time. So I didn't have the same level of compassion or understanding that my father was dealing with when he had lost his parents, or when my fiance had lost his parents. So there is a level of grief. There is true grief and sadness and sorrow that people feel when they've lost loved ones and they don't have the capacity to have any more conversations with them. There is deep loss there. And that's where I have to think, back to Noah. When Noah started to drink, was he drinking because he only saved 8 souls? Was he drinking because he had an epiphany, like he only saved his family and he should have tried harder to save other people? But then, I think back to, it wasn't just about evangelizing, meaning maybe Noah really did, try to bring other people onto the ark, and maybe he really did have those conversations. I don't know. But it was a difference of species. There were humans and there were hybrids. God was trying to save the humans. God did not want the hybrids. And as in the days of Noah, so shall be the days of the coming of the Messiah. Which means that we're dealing with species, people. We're dealing with humans and things that are not humans. And if you hadn't noticed by now, the world's pretty crazy. And if you hadn't noticed, if you hadn't noticed by now, like, a lot of people don't have a heart. And there's a difference when people have a heart and a soul, and when people are just cold and indifferent and they don't give a shit. And I think those are indicators of people that have a heart and a soul, that are humans, and the others who are not. So I leave you with this thought. Noah was building an ark. He was building his fortress that God told him to save him and his family. He was stocked up with food and supplies and the species of the animals, as directed by God. And he and his family were saved. But the drunkenness that Noah experienced, it was in the line. And maybe it's also another awareness that, like, spirits travel. The spirits don't die. The people's bodies may die, but the spirits move on to inhabit another body. And that's how demons work. And, when you look at a loved one who's just lost their way, it is sad as all get out. And I am here to tell you that when you love somebody and they display themselves as a certain person who's loving and generous and kind, and then all of a sudden the switch is flipped and they become, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like, it's sad, it's disappointing, it's horror. It's like horror to witness somebody stuck in drug addiction, stuck in alcohol addiction, and there's only so much that I can do. They have to want it. They have to want to stop what they're doing. And, some prayers help to a certain point. And some laying on of hands help to a certain point. But again, I think back to that day when I was in the hospital with my fiance and he was in a coma. And I did lay my hands on him and I prayed over him and I prayed for the best outcome. But in that moment, the Lord said to me, this is a one-time thing. Like, he needs to get it. And if he doesn't get it, that's it. Like, there will be grave consequences. That's what the Holy Spirit told me. There will be grave consequences if he turns away after this point. After he's wiped clean again, if he turns away, there are consequences. And sure enough, after that moment, and again, this is why this is pertinent and important to me, is because My fiance went on his binge on October 31st, the Day of the Dead. That's when he went on his drug binge. And he was in the hospital, he was in a coma, and 3 days later, I got the call after I had talked to him, after I prayed over him, after I had laid my hands on him, and I spoke up out of his coma. He repeated back to me word for word everything I said, tears streaming down his face. He seemed to be remorseful in that moment. But let's be realistic. He was high on morphine from the hospital. So when you're high on morphine, you may not necessarily be thinking straight. So there's that. But he cried and said he was so remorseful and this and that. And then, he's like, can I come back home? And I'm like, home is a variable right now. Like my home is not your home. Not after what you've done. There's consequences for your behavior. And, it's so difficult to watch somebody constantly torment themselves over and over again and keep choosing the wrong answers over and over and over. And at some point, you got to set a boundary and be like, look, dude, no, this is my home, but it's not yours. And you need to get your crap together. You need to surrender to the Lord. And He's the only one that can set your head straight and your heart straight. I can't do it for you. I'm going to keep praying for you. And from that date, okay, October 31st, 6 months later, he died. June 10th. He died because he kept going back to the same environments, the same drug dens, the same quote friends, the same stupid people that were doing drugs, drinking, and shooting up. And my caution to you is that if you are stuck in this paradigm of the Day of the Dead, of what October 31st promises, they promise that you can wear any kind of sexy costume and that there's no consequences. They promise that you can eat all the candy in the world and drink as much alcohol and do as many drugs as you want and everything is fine. And that is the devil. That is not from God. That is not what God is about. And that's what I'm saying. Like the contrast of who God is and what this October 31st means is so different. And you either get it or you don't get it. And my sadness and my sorrow and my grief have a lot to do with the fact that, and as right now as I say this, there's all these kids walking on the trail with stupid Halloween costumes on. So the point is that if we are led into the doctrine of the devil, whether by friends or family or church, because hey, a lot of churches are promoting this Halloween BS, and that's not biblical. Just so you know, Halloween is not biblical. Halloween is about the Day of the Dead. It is not about, trick or treat. They say that it's about trick or treat, but there is definitely tricksters and things that you shouldn't be involved in. And there's not a lot of treats. You may think that eating all these sugary things are good for you, but they aren't. And processed food is of the same nature. So you either get what I'm saying and you want to change your ways, or you ignore what I'm saying. You keep listening to the devil lying to you and your families, and you keep going deeper and deeper into the pit. And again, this is a choice. The letter Tet, the number 9, is about using your head. Are you going to use your head for the right reasons? And are you going to understand that you have a choice in every moment? You are either going to choose life or death. And if you choose life, that's with Yeshua, that's with Jesus. That's with God the Father. And if you don't choose life, and even by just choosing to not choose Jesus and Yeshua, then you are by default choosing the devil. And when you choose a Halloween costume, you're choosing the devil. When you choose, to drink to excess, you're choosing the devil. When you choose to do drugs and have sex with random strangers while doing drugs and while drinking, you're choosing the devil. So, my friends, I tell you, choose wisely. And you will be much more rewarded. Maybe not now, but you will be rewarded in heaven when you do the right thing. So I pray that you do the right thing and that you don't get caught up in this crazy Halloween. So have a good one.